We are in the middle of Perek Tes Zayin, chapter 16, and we are talking about the person who is putting his best foot forward. He is spending his time really learning and meditating and trying to develop those feelings of Ava and Yira in himself, but unfortunately, it's not happening. In other words, on the one hand, he sees that Hashem deserves that he should have, that everyone should have this tremendous Ava for him, tremendous love for him. And not only that, he deserves it because he is literally putting in the effort. He's literally putting in all the time and the effort, and he's making it happen, but it's not going. So what we said about this is that despite the fact that he is not necessarily getting the full-blown emotion, he is, on the other hand, making a conscientious decision within his mind that this is good for me. And because of the meditation, because of the learning, it's pushing him forward in order to then to do more Torah, to do more mitzvos, to make the right choices. So even though it's not necessarily a full-blown emotion, it's still something that's pushing him in the right direction. Okay, so let's continue. We're on page Chav Beis. I think we did this already, but part of it. But let's start it again. We'll start by the period. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down. Ve'ilizais yaseh lahem lechabko b'chol lev v'nefesh v'ma'od dahainu kiyum hatarig mitzvos b'maiser b'dibur v'machshava. Namely, that it should be that it's with all of his lev. This is the same line. B'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol me'odecha. Right? Namely, to fulfill all the 613 mitzvahs in action, in speech, and in thought. Right? Just like we've been saying all along. We're talking about the levushim here. We're talking about the garments. Right? Shehi sagas v'yediyas hatayra. That, what does it mean, the thought? We're starting with thought. Namely, the knowledge, the thinking about, the wisdom of the Torah canal. So when a person will invest himself, so now what's happening? He's actually investing himself into it because of these hidden feelings in his heart and in his brain. Because of that, he's pushing forward. So like it says, V'piv v'libo shavim, his mouth and his heart are equal. Namely what? Shemakayim kain b'fiv. That not only in his mind is he thinking about it, but also in his mouth, that this is what's coming out. Yeah? Kifi asher nigmar b'tvunas libo v'maycha. Because of what? Because this is what he decided. This is what the meditation brought him to. Dahainu. Namely what? Lios b'toiras Hashem chavtzo v'yegeh ba yomam b'layla. Namely that in the Torah of Hashem, that's where his chafetz, that's where his desire is, that's where his ratzon is. The difference between a ratzon and a chafetz is the idea of there's a tainut, there's a pleasure involved in it. Like that's where his pleasure is, to be totally immersed in Torah day and night. Befiv, in his mouth, v'cheina yadayim, and also his hands, v'shar haivarim, and all the rest of his limbs, namely to do mekayimim ha-mitzvos, to fulfill the mitzvahs. So he's bought into it. He gets it. He wants it. It's something that is really what he is directed towards and what he's focused on. Again, what he's saying. Why is he doing it? Because it's not just in general that it happens to pop into his mind or someone tells him to do it. No, he spent his time studying. He spent his time meditating, like we've been talking about, going into the details. And when he's gone into the details, what's happened is that he's internalized the ideas that he's read in Chassidus. He's internalized the ideas that he's talking about Hashem. So now it becomes real by him. It becomes something that he wants. It's something that he wants to put himself completely into. Okay? So that's what we're saying here. All right, tvuna zu. So now this tvuna, this emotional intellect, this idea that's in his head that this is good for me, that this is what I want, is mislabeshes, is now going to become enclosed into b'maisa, into the action, into the particular mitzvah that he did, or into the dibor, into the words of Torah he's speaking, or machshavas ha-Torah, and into the machshavas of the Torah v'mitzvoseha. Lios lahem bechinas moichin v'chayis. What's going to happen is now it's going to become like the brains of the chayis, the energy of, the life force of whatever Torah or whatever mitzvahs that he's doing. Like it says, "V'gadfim leparcha le'ela," and it's going to become like the wings of a bird that are going to cause that particular piece of Torah, that particular mitzvah, to fly up above. In the same manner as though he had literal love and fear, or he says here, fear and love, asher bizgalus libo. That was in a revealed way in his heart. So what the Zohar says is that every mitzvah that we do, every Torah that we learn, right, is in a certain sense like a body. And what happens is that when we are invested in that Torah, when we are invested in those mitzvahs, in particular, what we're talking about is when a person has a tremendous excitement for Yiddishkeit, for God, a tremendous love of a God, a tremendous seriousness. What happens is that the love acts like one wing, and the seriousness or the fear acts as the other wing, and it causes it to fly up. And where does it fly to? We're going to describe later on in the parak, but there are different worlds. Right? There's the world that we're in, the physical world of Asiya, then there's the spiritual world of Asiya, then there's the world of Yetzira, then there's the world of Bria, and there's the world of Atzilus, right? So what happens is that when we are learning our Torah, or when we are doing a particular mitzvah, based on whatever we are investing into that particular mitzvah, into that particular Torah, that's going to cause that piece of Torah, that mitzvah, to fly upstairs. That's what's going to happen. Is that clear? So what he's saying here is, okay, that's all well and good. When we're talking about having a real emotion, which is he's galus libo, in a revealed way in one's heart, and he's on fire. But this poor guy, he put himself into it. He learned the Hasidus. He meditated and meditated and meditated on what God is. And despite that, he didn't cause that emotion to explode in his heart. Right? So what about him? So he says, no. That tvuna, that emotional intellect, that decision that he's making on his part to now forge forward in the Torah mitzvahs that he's doing, even though it's not a pure emotion, the way we were talking about before, it also becomes the gasoline to go into the particular mitzvah that he's doing. Namely, here he puts in brackets, when it says Bizgalas Liva, Chafitza, Vachashika, Vachuka, Morgashes, Belibo, Benafsha, Tzama La Hashem, Ipnei, Rish Be'esh, Ahavaso, Belibo Canal. Like he says, with this unbelievable longing and desire and thirst and that he's feeling in his heart, when this like the idea of Tzama La Hashem, this thirst for Hashem, that is, like burning like a burning fire of love in his heart. That's the way it's supposed to be. But this guy doesn't have that. So when you have that, so then you're talking about major rocket fuel. And it's going to take that mitzvah, it's going to fly to the highest heavens. Right? Literally. But this guy, what about this boy? This is Tvuna. Okay, so he decides it doesn't, okay, So maybe that's very nice. So it also invests itself in, but how far is it going to go? But this tvuna, which is in his brain and in the hidden recesses of his heart, that it caused him, it brought him to actually get himself involved in that Torah, in that mitzvah that he's doing, right? And if it wasn't that he was mizbainin, that he didn't meditate with this energy that we're talking about, he wouldn't have gotten himself involved in the Torah mitzvahs. Only in the needs of the body. So he says a very interesting thing here. He says, Bichlal, people are people. And what we really our natural draw is for something that is going to be for me. Something that's going to be healthy for me, something that's going to be good for me, something that's going to be pleasurable for me, something that's going to be... So that's what I'm going to do. Always first choice. That's going to be our first choice. But because he meditated on Hashem, and he's thinking about how great God is, and he's thinking about how he wants to be involved in Torah mitzvahs, and even though he doesn't have the emotion, but he made that decision in his mind based on the meditation. So instead of doing something that is for him, he's doing something for God, right? So there's something to it. This tfuna is causing him to go against his nature. His nature may have been to do whatever natural thing, whatever physical thing which comes normally by the person. And now, because of his meditation, he's changing his mind. He's going to know he's going to spend his time learning an extra page of Gemara. He's going to spend his time doing an extra mitzvah, going out of his way, right? Or everyone, Friday afternoon, what do we rather do? We'd rather be taking a nap. But instead, he thinks about Hashem, he thinks about being a Jew, he thinks about what he's doing, and he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and help. I'm going to go and put tefillin on this guy, and I'm going to go to the hospital to visit these people, and I'm going to go, and he goes out of his way to help other people. That's not a normal thing. Normal thing is, I have a day off, let me take a nap, let me rest, let me look on the internet, scroll through some videos or whatever. This is the normal thing. But because he has spent his time learning Chassidus, because he spent his time meditating on Hashem, so now he's saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different. That idea of going beyond oneself, where does it come from? It comes from the fact that he meditated about Hashem. He thought about God. He thought about what is his soul doing in this world. And when he thinks about it from that perspective, he decides, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to go beyond myself. I'm going to do something to help another person. That's what I'm going to do. Why? Because I know it's the right thing. That's the reason why. So that meditation, when he really is thinking about Hashem, is actually changing his life. It's really impacting him. Despite the fact that he's not getting this full-blown, incredible emotion, whatever it is. Okay, so he's not getting that. But it is causing him to make a change in what he's doing. And even you could say to yourself, but wait a minute, what about that guy over there? That guy over there, by nature, he is a person that is constantly wanting to learn. That's what he wants to do all day and night. The guy is like really interested in learning always. He's a bookworm type, you want to call him, whatever you want to call him. This is who he is. However, even this person, Alter Rebbe says, his nature is to love his body more. And something that is going to be more comfortable for him, he's going to do. So even that guy who loves learning, he wants to learn all day long, that's what he wants to do. But because of the meditation, he pushes himself a little extra. So that is what we're talking about here. In other words, all along we've been talking about the Beinani. We're talking about the Avodah Tama the Beinani, the perfect Avodah the Beinani. This is it. The Avodah Tama the Beinani is learn Chassidus, learn about God, learn about why the soul is in the world. Then spend time meditating on it, contemplating it, whatever English word you want to use to describe it. But somehow you have to get it internalized in me. It's not enough to just read it in a book. There has to be a practice involved here. Without the practice, it's just an intellectual pursuit. There has to be the time that is spent thinking about Hashem, thinking about the neshama, thinking about Torah mitzvahs, thinking about these things. Then, because of that, he makes a decision in his mind. This is for me. I want to do more. I want to spend my time more wisely. Let's put it that way. I'm going to make better decisions about my life. Based on that, even though, yes, the greatest, the appropriate, the most special Beinani, he's now on fire and he's in love with God and he's chashika v'chafitza v'tzama, all the words that Alter Rebbe uses. This guy's not that. This is me. This is you. We're not on fire. But we are going to make a decision that Friday afternoon we're going to go out of our way for someone else. We're going to go on Mifsaim. Friday afternoon we're going to, instead of just taking a nap and eating potato barakas, we're going to learn an extra page of Gemara, or we're going to learn a little bit extra, or we're going to call a friend that we think might need help, or whatever, because we want to not think just about ourselves. So now he says, V'zer Ramsu Razal Ba'amro. So now we could see a deeper meaning in a famous teaching of our rabbis. What is that famous teaching of our rabbis? It says like this: Machshava toiva, a good thought. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa l'maisa. Hashem connects it to the action. Now, that is a very unusual choice of words for this quote. Why? Because we know the simple meaning of that passage is that if you have in mind to do something good, and unfortunately it didn't work out, you missed the bus never came, right? You try to do something and something else happened, there was no electricity, there was no this, there was no that, whatever it is, something happens. So the simple meaning of this teaching is that Hashem will connect your good thought to the action which never took place, and he'll consider it as though you did a really nice thing. Yashakayach. Thank you very much for doing it. And that's what he says here. It should have said, it should have said instead, it should have said something along like the lines of Machshava Taiva, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a good thought, Hashem, then considered as though you did it. But that's not what it says. It says instead, Mitzarfa l'maise. He connects it to an action. So what does this mean? So for that, we're going to have to wait until tomorrow's class. Mitzvah Hashem will understand a deep teaching in what that passage is really talking about. And that's it for